It is a crazy time right now. I mean, I've got a handlebar mustache because I've been watching too many 70s and 80s World Series. Tiger King has become a thing. It's come and gone. The board game industry, which was at its peak just 3 months ago, is starting to really drop down. I'm not sure where we're at and where we're going, but if we can get through this, I'm going to suggest 3 reasons why I think the board game industry will come back bigger and better than it was before. And stick around for the long haul. Shawn from Shield Wall Gaming here, and the industry is taking some lumps right now. Even at Shield Wall Gaming, we've had some challenges, even keeping the doors open. We were kind of running into a really good place there, and some challenges have come up, of course, with this whole COVID thing. The industry itself is starting to struggle. I've seen a few reports just early on that have started to say that there's some companies that might be having a big challenge with staying open and keeping their product line going. Whenever there's something like this that happens, though, whether it's an economic issue or some other type of event, industries rebound. Some industries even rebound bigger than they were before. And I'm going to give you 3 reasons in this video why I think that the board game industry will come back bigger than it was before. And my first one is simply absence makes the heart grow fonder, as they say. We keep saying that we're going to be so much closer to each other when this thing's over. Now, that may or may not be true, but I certainly know that I miss friends. I miss playing board games. I play a lot with my family, thank goodness, but I miss seeing my friends even outside the board game world. I also know that there are a lot of individuals out there that really struggle without being able to have human contact, for those who don't have families in their home or immediate family. And so the need to get out and play games is a big part of their kind of social diet, if you will. So I think the first main point is when this ends, people will rush back to this and back to events and make more time than they did before to be able to get back together. The challenge with that is that's a short-term spike. And so I don't know if that has a longevity, but I think you'll see more people playing together. My second point is what I'm calling the Rosenberg Effect. And for those of you who know, obviously if you play tabletop games, especially Euro games, Uwe Rosenberg is a very famous Euro game designer. And in the late 90s, we started seeing these amazing designs coming from Germany. And Germany, of course, is kind of considered the board game capital of the world from a lot of different areas. One, there's a lot of cardboard production, a lot of industry around it there. But the other big reason that I think sometimes goes untalked about or not talked about as much is shortly after World War II, there was a big effort in denazification. So part of this denazification was censorship, which the United States took a big role, especially in West Germany, of trying to censor what the media outlets were saying. In fact, the U.S. Army had taken control of over 37 newspapers, 6 radio stations, 314 theaters, 642 cinemas, 101 magazines, 237 book publishers, and 7,384 German book dealers and printers, in order to try to censor the information that was getting to the German public. This censorship ended shortly in around 1950, but carried on from the German government for many, many years. Even to this day, there's many video games that have to release a separate German version because their censors are so tight in what they release to the public. But what this meant is, going through the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there's generations of children brought up where one of the most wholesome types of family entertainment was board games. And so there's a lot of children that grew up in those generations, Uwe Rosenberg being one of them, where he started to really let his mind and imagination expand around how to design and create better games. In the United States, of course, we know from that time period, the 70s, 80s, everything was a gotcha game. It was, I'm beating you, and everything's super competitive. In Germany, the games weren't as much that way. They were a little bit more passive. They didn't necessarily have co-op games, but the games were a little bit different, and that's where we started seeing this Euro-style game start to come from. So I have had recently, in the last several weeks, I've had multiple people outside of my gaming circle and gaming network, and people who don't even know about Shield Wall or Shield Wall's channel, ask me about family board games. What can we get? We're bored. We want to be able to spend this time together. So I'm seeing more and more from that end, and I don't know what that means for the industry, because if people aren't playing in big conventions, things like that, people aren't buying as much. So I don't know if that has a huge economic impact that people are interested in that. But I feel like board gaming's becoming, this might be something that kind of pushes the American public over the edge. And in that longevity, children who will play these board games, especially hopefully more modern ones and modern designs, will themselves start to think through some of these mechanics, and that's how we will create a longer trail, if you will, of board gamers, tabletop gamers, and board game designers to make this thing effective for a long time to come. My third reason is probably a little bit more wishful thinking. I'm not sure, and it probably is a shot in the dark, but board game companies should fail if they don't make good board games. They shouldn't fail because of COVID-19 and because of a pandemic. However, I think the thinning of the industry will have a good effect. There was a lot of noise and there was a lot of content out there. Some of it amazing, some of it okay, and some of it that just really wasn't great. And there was a lot coming out, a lot of games that replicate other games, games that just take mechanics and reskin them or retheme them. And so I think if there's some of that happening and that becomes somehow less through this pandemic and sort of economic freeze, I think we see a little bit better innovation, and we leave more room for people who are passionate about these new and innovative board games to come through the market. Kickstarter, as we know, in my opinion anyway, has become a way for companies to front load money, and that's not what Kickstarter was designed for. You know, now what you have is you have major companies that will front load the money for a game. They'll develop the game ahead of time, and then that money that they get from the Kickstarter, they'll put into some type of investment. They'll make a certain percentage off of that, and then they'll start running it that way. And there's nothing against, there's nothing wrong with the company doing it, but that's not what Kickstarter was designed for. Kickstarter was designed for people who didn't have the money to get a project off the ground and convince people that they could do it and start from scratch on something. And that's where it started. That's where Kickstarter and the board game, kind of sort of revolution in the last couple of years, I think, the last 10 years, was really helped by Kickstarter. So I think if maybe some of that quiets down, I think we see a better effect of that. Kind of a fourth reason that maybe didn't make the cut for me is that I think you're going to see conventions come back with a huge explosion. I think some of the conventions in 2021, 2022 will be some of the biggest that we've ever seen. We were already seeing each convention sort of break records, and I think you'll continue to see that. I think people will be clamoring for it, and I think that's really going to help this industry grow. So although these are crazy times, Tabletop Simulator is amazing, it's great. It's not the same, but it's something for us to kind of keep the itch off as we're going through these times, but it's certainly not the same as playing with somebody and having tangible things to touch, play with, and own and collect. And so that's the part that I want to get back to, of course, and I think we will. And hopefully when we get this vaccine and we get this whole thing kind of sorted out, and we make better decisions as a country and as a world moving forward, we can get back to board gaming being a priority because of the social aspect of it. Board games are fun and interesting because people are fun and interesting, and you lose a little bit of that virtually, and so I think we'll be clamoring to get back to it. So I think we're going to be fine. I think the industry is going to be fine, and I'm excited to see where it goes after we get through this whole big mess. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for giving Shield Wall a chance.